Muscanero, it just kind of will move through your, I'll let you do it. All right, we're ready to begin. Thank you for all getting here on time. That's pretty nice. My guest for today is John Dominguez. And some of you know John from long time. And many of you don't know John very well at all. He's a child of the church who had a family and raised them a good chunk of the way outside of the area. So he's was here a long time ago, but then returned in 2018, if my math is right. And so some of you are getting to know him as kind of a newer member. But I'm going to pray, and then I already told John I'm going to have him explain. Some families just marry into the church really well. And my family hasn't done that at all. So I'll have to have, I shouldn't go too far with that. Set him up with somebody in the church. But John's, interconnected with several of the families in church, so I'll have him explain that. But let me open up with a word of prayer. Lord, thank you for this time to interview John, and this is really exciting for me, and I think John has a neat story, but sometimes it's a story that you just haven't asked all the questions, and I'm sure we won't today either, but just give us a little chance to reflect upon the providence of God. It's just so amazing to look back. You just keep moving forward, and then every now and then you look back and you go, whoa, I can see differently from here. And so there are some perspective opportunities for us to look at, and there's plenty in front of the Dominguez family too. So their sights are forward looking as well, which I know you want us to be, looking ahead and trusting you. So thanks for this time, and just use it for your purposes, we pray in Jesus' name. Amen. All right, I'll help you if I think of any others, but give us a little, first of all, even before we start with your upbringing, just let people have a context for who you are with how you're related to some of the folks in the church that they might know.
Okay, so it's really bright up here, so I can't really see where people are sitting, but so Denise Wenzel is my mom. She was remarried 20 years ago, I believe. Is that right, Mom? 20 years ago?
21, yeah.
21, to Pastor Bill Wenzel, who's now my stepfather, and Lindsay Muscanero, related to the Muscanero family now, for those who know Mike and Alice.
Because she's Bill's daughter.
Bill's daughter, I'm sorry. And then my sister, my blood sister, Anna, who's over here I see, is married to Nathan Wagner. So we branch out into the Wagner family, and then Joe Wagner's married to a Wilkos, and Wilkoses are, I think, pretty much everyone in Baraboo is related to them somehow.
You got it covered.
So,
yeah.
And then my other stepsister, Tiff, is an Overleen. So Pastor Blake over at Emmanuel, who's recently retired, I guess that's about it. So
John's very connected. Yeah, good. So let's do upbringing a little bit. Now, you were born in Indiana, I believe, and give a little bit of a your broader family, the Henry bunch in particular, but then how you ended up in Baraboo.
So interesting upbringing, I guess. I was born way back when, 1973. My mom was very young, unmarried, still in high school when she got pregnant with me. And 1973 is, obviously the year Roe v. Wade was in effect. And I think Mom had some pressure to maybe think about that. But I guess God was watching out for us right away, early in life. And she kept me. And she's always said it's one of her, or maybe even her best decision. Other than accepting Christ, I suppose.
Yeah.
So I guess we'll take number 2. So born in Fort Wayne, Indiana, rather large town. My mom is one of 20 kids. My grandma did have 3 miscarriages, but of course we count those. So very large family, very connected family in Fort Wayne. So it's kind of weird.
They run that town.
They do. My uncle is mayor. Has been mayor for quite some time. Pretty influential family. It's kind of strange because unfortunately, my father's family would pretty much be considered the opposite side of the coin, I guess. And I jokingly tell my wife many times, if I ever get pulled over, I don't want to get my license as a Dominguez because they may know a lot of Dominguez as not so well. So I always want to have a Henry card. John Henry. But pull the name out. But I ramble, so I might have totally went off base.
Yeah, and so you guys you're born in Indiana, but then you eventually made your way.
Yep. So it was Mom and I, and then my father, not making a lot of great decisions in life. He's pretty much been incarcerated most of my life. Just has some issues that he's working through, still continues to work through. We moved initially to Wisconsin when I was about 5, and it was because my father was transferred from a prison in Indiana up to Oxford. So every time I drive by the Oxford prison, I drive a lot for my job, and I drive past there so often, and all the memories kind of flood back because that's where I typically saw my dad, was going to see him in prison. So it's, I thought that was like a normal thing growing up. I mean, as you're going through life, your normal is what you think most normal is. And it was, weird for me later on when I got into school and, hold on, why is this kid's dad in school with him? And it just was weird. But, so we moved to Indiana, or from Indiana to Wisconsin. Moved to a tiny little home in Wisconsin Dells, and I think that was when my mom met Jim. I'm sorry, someone who introduced her for the church, First
Mrs.
Baptist.
Berlowski?
Jim Wright's mom.
Oh,
yeah.
okay, neat.
I couldn't remember who exactly it was. So,
okay.
So that's then how the connection.
Do you remember that house in the Dells?
Oh, absolutely. It's not there anymore.
Okay.
So it was on. Yeah, I drive by it, actually. I drive by that spot quite a bit, just for thinking about memories. We had this sweet 2 brothers, older gentlemen, probably in their late 60s when we moved in, Al and Chris, who, once Mom pulled in, I was 5, probably wasn't going to, either way, help move in stuff, so I just kind of took off. Mom's moving stuff in, and the next thing you know, she's frantically looking for her little boy, who's no longer there, and I was meeting friends. You'd think someone my age, but no, let's meet the 65, 70-year-old guys across the street. They offered me Hostess cupcakes, so yeah, let's go into their house and hang out with them.
That's how we became friends. You'd hang out with anybody.
I wasn't going to say it.
And I know now we're moving into your mom's, she would understand the chronology, and we don't have to get it just right. But you were in the Dells for a while, and you were attending First Baptist here in Baraboo.
Yep, we, Mom, got introduced to Jim's mom and invited her to church. And I think, if I remember correctly, Mom did not remember the address or the street that initial time. Is that right, Mom? Yeah, and there's been many times that, Mom has definitely felt the presence of the Holy Spirit, guiding her and me also. But that was one of the times she just blindly, as we did many times, just jumped in the car and she's like, we're just going to get there. We're going to figure it out from the Dells to Baraboo. I don't know the name of the church. I don't remember I kind of remember a little bit. And she was praying the whole way that she would know where to go. And she says that the name Jefferson Street popped into her head right as she was coming up by the old Dairy Queen, and took a left, and there was First Baptist. And so then we were here for about 1.5 years.
Okay.
And then my father got transferred back to Indiana. So we moved back to Indiana
Oh, okay.
for, I think, 2 years before we settled back in the area for
It
good.
was second grade that you were here for.
Third grade for good.
Third, okay.
Yeah.
Till first, and then 2 years later. I don't. It's kind of funny, how being a kid, you know your memory of things, but I really don't remember a time without you. Like, it just seems like you were here the whole time. So, I guess your leaving must not have overwhelmed me.
Really
too much.
impacted just
Yeah.
crushed him, as you can see.
I do remember a girl at church I had a crush on in kindergarten, so I do have memories that go back that far. But you probably
Now we're dying to ask.
You probably did too, but let's not go there. So John and I were the same grade in school, and certainly at church. And so you came back in third grade, and then it must have been about then or a little later that let's see, third grade. We're getting close to Anna appearing.
She had appeared, I believe, about that point. So yes.
Yeah. What?
So Anna was born in '81. My father was out for a little time, and I don't need to go into more details.
One of the
I got really
the most
awkward there for a
happiest
second.
moments of your life, right?
Absolutely.
It was
No,
kind of
so-
funny growing up. John had this little sister, and she was eight years younger than John, and I was the youngest in my family. So to me, it was like really exciting to have a kid around, and for John, it was like, just go away, Anna. Kind
It
of
was a
thing.
blessing. What are you talking about, Dan?
Yeah. So we grew up in the church. You guys were not just kind of there are all different types of people that come to church, but you guys were really, really core. Your mom brought you guys. You absolutely grew up 110%. You were the Sunday school, Sunday morning worship service, Sunday evening. Now we're getting into hardcore, and Wednesday night services. So we absolutely grew up in everything together. And, I was close friends with other, John Wright, Tom Davidson, all four of us. We were kind of the big four.
Well, we ran the church.
We ran the church, yeah. We let the parents think they did. But we literally ran, when they came up with these safe child, can't move through the building, I just felt like such a hypocrite when I signed off on those restrictions because we ran all over the place.
I would hide on Mom on Sundays. Like, when she wanted to go, I would be hiding in an office behind a door.
We didn't want to go.
No, didn't want to go.
Yeah, we played hard together. Jamie played with us too. Jamie Wright, Jamie Sunsmo, and many others. But we were really close. It's kind of one of those things that, John, I didn't really think about. You don't really think about things too much as a kid, but when we were growing up, I spent many overnights at more than anybody. More than Tom and John. I did spend nights at their place, but we really spent a lot of time together. You were my go-to when what are we going to do Friday night, and probably Saturday night and any other night that we could get away with it. But we just spent a lot of time at your place, and then some of the overnights would be at our house. But what was that like, John, to be? Nowadays there's a lot of talk about growing up without a dad. And honestly, like you kind of said, well, I thought everybody, it seemed very normal. Was it something that you were thinking a lot about or comparing or feeling like you were missing out on something? Or were you just kind of plugging along and not thinking too much about it?
I think it impacted me. I knew. There was, I'd see like you and your dad hang out, and Chuck, even though he was a little feisty sometimes, it was obvious that, that he cared for you and loved you, and he'd always be taking us to the lake and things like that. So I knew that there was a component missing. My mom did, amazing at trying to fill the role of both, trying to do some guy stuff with me or rough and, she always joked, I think, said, she wanted me to be rough and tough, because that's what a dad would do. So, there was.
And she did have biceps. She did. And she would show them off. Just this amazing big round, she called them the Henry biceps. I mean, this is true, right?
Oh yeah.
Yeah,
I mean, I wasn't going to say things like that
Oh.
because I didn't want to embarrass my mom, but we'll leave it to Dan. But yeah, I definitely, there was a component that was missing, of course. And I think you bury it.
Yeah.
I'm a very much just stuff all that stuff kind of down in there, But I think I was probably in 5th grade when Mom decided that she would look for someone in the church to kind of take me under his wing. And then Paul Quinn, for those who know Paul, I don't know if he's in here right now, but there he is. A very influential man in my life. He just, through all of my faults, he took me in and, not all of my faults. There's a few things that he didn't care for, I'm sure, but he's grinning over there. He knows what I'm talking about. But yeah, so that was great. He kind of started to fill that role and teach me some of the dad stuff. So
That was interesting because I don't know if I would have hung out with Paul so much, but I think it was mainly, yeah, I guess I don't know how that worked, but yeah, we all of a sudden started hanging out at Paul's house. And then that became, I did that all the way through high school and through a good part of college. We did a lot of trips together and things like that. Do you think in some ways not having a dad he was in your life. It wasn't like you didn't have a dad or that he had died, but kind of sometimes that can almost be harder when you're aware and you're thinking maybe that there's going to be a connection there. Do you think that affected the dad, kind of skipping ahead a little bit here, but do you think it affected the man that you are? I see you as an incredibly attentive, and very present dad in your home, and I don't know if that, if you thought about that as a kid, did you think, I want to be a dad someday?
Let me back up to that first part you asked. I think one thing that I always would eat at me is, my father was making these poor choices. Why is he choosing this over his family? And that really, that hurt. And I think many times, not that you ever want to say a parent dying, it would be a great thing, but I think if something would have happened to him, it probably would have been a little easier. It wasn't his fault. So I think that would have maybe been easier.
Yeah.
But once again, I just stuffed. And I think I was about 15 or 16, or maybe 17, I don't even remember. Mom decided that I probably needed to go talk to somebody, and she had me go talk to Carlsward after he left the pastoral work, and he started counseling. And
He's our
former pastor.
Yeah,
I didn't want to go. I don't think I was real happy about. I don't want to go. I don't need to go talk to anybody. What are you talking about? But I remember the conversation there, and I think I met with him 2 or 3 times. I can't remember exactly, but one of the, I shouldn't say one of, pretty much the only memory that I have of that is Pastor Zord had this painting or drawing. I can't remember exactly what it was, but it was a beach scene, and there was a dad and a son on the beach playing together, and he pointed at it and said, "Where are you in this picture?" And I lost it. I just lost it. And I said, I'm not in that picture, because what did I see? I saw the little boy, right? And once I collected myself, he said, no, I see, and he pointed to the father, I see you as this. And that helped, being able to see that, okay, I did not have I thought it was a great childhood, honestly. I had a great childhood, but, that one component was missing. So I don't want to say set my eyes on the future, and that's what I could be. But I guess looking back, it was that. Now, how that impacted me as a husband and a father, I think good and bad. Because I didn't have a dad, I did a lot of stuff by myself. I jokingly call myself the most antisocial person you'll meet. I love being alone. I like being with people, but I like my alone time a lot. And I think that sometimes I can carry that over with my kids, come on, you just go do something on your own, Shoo.
And then God gave you Jonathan. You're not getting away from that.
Not getting away from that kid, no. But on the other side of that, I constantly reminding myself what I didn't have and making sure that I did have that. And I think that that's actually the reason that brought us back to Baraboo. So just being able to be home more.
Nice. Yeah. And kind of along those lines, and I don't mean to, it feels funny in some way even now bringing it up, but I do remember noticing little things that you guys were poor. I remember I hadn't seen it before, but like your mom would stop and get gas, and she'd get $5 worth of gas. She wouldn't fill up her tank.
I thought it stopped at 5.
And you were in I think probably low income housing or whatever that was over there, and it didn't really affect anything in terms of we did everything. I think that I don't remember us not doing anything we wanted to do. We just bought our Faygo pop and Doritos, and we seemed to always have what we needed. But your situation, and I don't know if that was a burden for you growing up. Your mom fought through needing help, and she ended up getting an education and becoming a school teacher. So that transitioned over time, but for quite a number of our primary, at least your growing up years, there were probably a lot of we can't do that kind of responses. I don't know. If
it's funny because I when I was teaching, I would tell stories of my upbringing and things like that. And I still remember this one. Yes, we grew up not having a lot. I didn't really realize it because my mom was. I don't know how she got bills paid. I don't know how we had Christmas gifts sometimes. I still remember opening the refrigerator sometimes, and there's like, what? There's nothing in there, but Mom still got something on the table. It's amazing to me. But I remember going over to the Gunderson's house because that was like my second home when I was really young. I don't even remember, but I saw the strangest thing. Dan pulled cheese out of the refrigerator, but it wasn't like the cheese that I got in this brick. The government cheese for anyone who grew up poor. I didn't realize that it came in these little individually wrapped slices that you could just put on grilled cheese without hacking the big knife and cutting a chunk off. Wow. That floored me. I'm like, wow, what is this? I didn't want to ask because I didn't want to look like an idiot, but I still remember that, and I was like, whoa. And it's just little things like that where you started to realize, oh, maybe there is some differences, but I didn't really feel it a whole lot growing up, except for the cars we drove. Oh boy.
Yeah.
They were some.
That one big one was.
Oh, there's been a few big ones.
Okay, a few big ones.
Yeah. That was a little. I think I used to have Mom drop me off a little bit away from school, so I didn't walk in. Then she got the little yellow Toyota, and that was kind of a cool car. So.
Oh yeah, that was the first one you were driving.
Yeah, that little yellow Toyota was pretty nice. So.
Right. Okay, good.
And in this decade, the same decade, I think that we were in, that was pretty amazing because most of the cars were 25, 30 years old, I think, that we drove. So.
Yeah, good. Well, I'm glad to hear that it wasn't something that you kind of walked around. To me, you always had lots of friends, and like I think it was just as likely that we'd spend the night at your house as mine. I don't remember there being any.
Mom and I were talking about some stuff last night, and she just reminded me that, God has provided so much in our lives, but He always provided us with a home above our means, I think. I mean, there are some homes that we lived in that were just amazing, and Mom says, I don't know how I got this house. We did.
Yeah.
And then our Madison Avenue house, that was
beautiful.
I mean, I won't tell the whole story. Talk to my mom about it, but it's a God thing there, how we got that home. It was amazing. So
nice. Tell us a little bit about your faith. As a child growing up, I saw what I observed, but it'd be interesting to hear how you processed your understanding of the gospel, kind of how that happened. When did you receive Christ, and a little bit about how you feel your walk with the Lord had been in your.
Sure. I remember about 12. I think it was 12 or 13.
Okay.
When I said the magic prayer, right? That's what we did back then. We had to say that prayer. At that point, I'm not sure if I think I knew what was going on, and yes, I was very, understanding of what I was doing and making that profession of faith. I'm not sure if it was like, that life-changing thing at such a young age. But no, it was very much part of my life up through high school. And then, like my senior year, I think it became a little bit less. Of course, I started dating a girl, and I ended up with a whole bunch of new friends. And those new friends were not Dan, Tommy, John, who had, their roots here in the church. Mine started to be, oh, look at the world. What's that over there? What's that over there? And kind of started to, walk away, I guess, a little bit. I did end up going to a Christian college my first semester. Education was not necessarily my biggest love, I guess I could say. I applied for one college, put all your eggs in one basket. I got accepted. So that was to Toccoa Falls down in Georgia with Dan's sister. And at that point, I'm not sure if I've ever told my mom this, so she told me I could say anything and she'd be okay with it. By the time I was graduating, I really just wanted out of the house. I didn't want to be home, and I didn't want to be there anymore. Not because it was a horrible place, just I was ready to just be on my own, and I knew everything, and I was ready to do that. So I headed to Georgia for a very short time before I moved back, and so.
Yeah, and did BU second semester?
Yeah, BU second semester. So by the time I came back, I kind of tied back in with the same group of friends that I was hanging out with in high school because they were a little bit younger than me, and they weren't great friends. So I think that's why it's really important to Jess and I, or especially to me, that we want to make sure that our kids. It's important, who their friends are, because I had great, solid friends rooted in the church, and once I got these friends who were not in the church necessarily, I just kind of went off that path.
So you went a year at BU, or a semester at BU, and then take us through schooling and your what you became professionally.
Yep. So I left Georgia because I decided when I was in Georgia that I wanted to be a Phi Ed teacher. They didn't offer that there. Smart kid would have thought, well, let's see what they offer at this college. No. So I had to transfer into BU because my grades were not great in Georgia, and I needed to get my grades up, and my ACT score in high school was not spectacular, so I couldn't just slide into a UW school, really. But then I ended up going to La Crosse. I got accepted there. I came down to my last final, my last class at BU. I was sweating, but I just snuck in there.
Nailed it. Nice.
So I went to school in La Crosse. Did not do well there right away. Kind of lived that college life. And got my act together. Graduated, pretty decent grades, and became a Phi Ed teacher up in the Appleton area I did that for 20 years.
And nailed that too. It sounded like that was a very good fit for you. It was at a private school, and
yeah, it was. I really found my niche once I got into what I wanted to do. I kind of took off. Had nothing but accolades from professors, which was nice to hear. And then I actually taught in a Catholic high school or middle school for my entire teaching career. It was supposed to be my springboard into a better paying job, because private school teachers, I don't know if we have any in here. I can't really see anybody out there, but, they don't get paid real well. People always assumed, we work in a private school, you get paid a lot. No, not so much. But I absolutely fell in love with it. I fell in love with the staff, the kids. And then, in a weird way, that, even though it was, Catholic teaching, I felt like, I'm kind of coming back to the church a little bit. Not so much, but a little bit.
Yeah.
I guess that was my way of making things right in my stomach, I guess, about, where my life was at that point. So.
Yeah. And I was just thinking about, we did all those trips, all those retreats, all those Grand Canyon trips, canoe trips, retreats, mission trips, everything that was going on. We had kind of done all of it. But I think you can sometimes be very involved in church And, we all have to make that. That's what, I do get a little nervous about, if one child in the church gets baptized at, a very young age, then all of a sudden you have all the classmates and I'm not talking about baptism per se, but, it is a process to really make that your own, to really, and I think you had yours at a little later stage but I wouldn't say later than usual. I think a lot of people have to kind of sort out where am I at with things. But you were so churched that it wasn't like you could say, well, I never really experienced. You really had been so immersed in all of the church life that might have been a little bit of a challenge to go, how do I work my way back? How do I make it all the way? So, okay, well, we need Jess and kids in this story. So tell us how you found a wife.
Well, I was teaching up in the Appleton area, and was still kind of I just was finishing up a really long-term, I was with my ex-girlfriend for like 7 years, so a long time, and that was kind of finishing up, and then I started working up in Menasha at the Y, because when you worked, you got a free membership, and my life was lifting weights and teaching, and that's pretty much what I was doing back then, free membership. So that's what brought me to the Y. And Jess was working there at the time in childcare, and that's how I met her. We jokingly say the first time I met her, I didn't really care for her. She came across very snotty and upset at me by just trying to talk with her.
Wait a minute.
She had a whole rat of kids with her, from the daycare, and little kids, trying to herd them through a busy section of the Y to the gymnasium to play. I'm sure she was stressed out about that, but my first indication of her was, ooh, she very, very pretty, but so that was.
There's more to life than pretty.
There's more to life than pretty.
Yeah.
And then it wasn't, a while later, we just developed a friendship. We had some mutual friends at the Y, and then they had these, up in the Appleton area, they had this thing called Corporate Challenge, where every major business could send these little teams to play volleyball or go bowling and all these things, just to kind of, get the community to think about health, because it was all about health, and then I guess develop camaraderie in the workplace. Yeah. So we had some teams, and I think we were bowling together and volleyball, if I remember correctly, and I just started to become more smitten by her. And
nice.
She was just getting out of a very long, serious relationship. She was engaged to a gentleman who was not the nicest person. Mm-hmm. And then it kind of started from there.
Yeah. And Faith, if I remember, was she was also from a Catholic
Yeah,
background.
Jess was Catholic.
Yeah.
And at that point, once again, my faith wasn't, she was pretty.
Yeah. And
she
nice.
talked to me.
And really nice, yeah.
And she wanted to have a conversation with me.
Yeah.
2 thumbs up for me
So
at that point.
was that something, did you talk a little bit about that, or was
no,
it? Yeah, okay.
It was really a non-discussion,
So
I think, at that point.
Not to bring Jess right in there, but it wasn't maybe a big, she wasn't concerned. You were basic, it wasn't like you were way off. You both come from Christian traditions, and wasn't a problem. Yeah. Go ahead.
No, I was going to say, it really wasn't an issue. We actually got married in a Catholic church, and I think that a few people were surprised by that, just who didn't know kind of where I was at in my life, when they got invitations from Catholic church.
Well, that's,
I did not have to convert to Catholicism or anything like that.
Yeah.
We found a very open church, and a deacon who married us, he actually was from a dual religion marriage also. His wife was Protestant, he was Catholic, so it was,
gotcha.
so that was, I mean, I don't know if that was, God's, I don't know, wisdom and saying, oh, okay, let's start the seeds back here a little bit again.
Yeah.
So
I think that is interesting in light of your mom's background. She was one of 17
mom's a
living
very
children.
stouch Catholic. Stouch Catholic
that family. And honestly, it isn't just that we were wary of Catholics. It was that Catholics were, you didn't stop being a Catholic if you were a Catholic. And we still have that today. If you get, whether it's baptism or even just joining a church, sometimes it's very, very hard on families. So your mom was one of those ones who had, been faithfully, she kind of really created a bit of a problem in her family, and Paul, honestly, too. He was one of 8 kids, those big Catholic families. It was very hard for them, and then they were very concerned about the salvation of their Catholic family. So I think that must have been some of the context there. Nowadays it's maybe it raises eyebrows a little bit, but I think maybe at that time it was a bigger surprise. But yeah, no, that is interesting. The whole Henry family probably felt a little appreciation that.
Yeah, it was important to Jess's dad, you
Yeah.
know, because he was a pretty staunch Catholic. Her mom was not really. I think she converted to Catholicism back in the day when you had to get married in a Catholic church, but it was important to her dad that's where she got married. So.
So you had kids first before your faith really
Yep.
came back strong. But give me the
Sure. So Jess and I had our first home, and great little home. We had Jonathan, and I think we had I think Sophia was just born at that time. We had new neighbors that moved in next door to us, Aaron and Andy, a young couple, really fun. They had just gotten married, and just super couple. And they invited us to their church service for Christmas, to see their Christmas program. And Jess and I said, yeah, that'd be great. So we went, packed up, went as a family, and it was for anyone who knows the Appleton area, Christ the Rock, real big church up there, phenomenal church. And went in, and service was great. Live animals walking through the church. I mean, it's a big church, and they had big spectacular. So I think Jess. I think that might have been Jess's first time, in an atmosphere like that in church, and so she was just floored. I mean, her mouth was agape, and I was like, "Oh, this is spectacular. This is great," And then afterwards, I don't remember if it was that day or if it was the next day, or maybe we went out with them for ice cream or something. But I remember Andy asked me, "So, how was it? Was that too different? Was that an okay experience for you, John?" And I'm like, "Yeah, it reminds me of my church where I grew up in." And he's like, "Huh?" He says, "Aren't you Catholic?" And I'm like, "No." Thinking, what would give you that reason? Well, because I taught in a Catholic school. So he just assumed, since I taught in a Catholic school, I was Catholic. So that kind of started the conversation. And then Aaron and Andy just kind of were constantly chatting with us, and we started attending Christ the Rock, and then just started getting, I would say, starting to get more serious about our faith. I think we had lots of conversations, or at least I was thinking internally. I have kids. I know how I need to be raising them, and I need to get my act together. So that was kind of the start back onto our walk.
Yeah. Where would you say in terms of, so now this is going to get interesting, and it's interpretation too, right? It's interpretation. But would you, just looking back, and I don't know that we really understand, do you think that you came to Christ for the first time, or do you believe that you had salvation as a child?
I think I had salvation as a child because I knew what it was, and I knew that that's what I wanted. It just was, plant that seed. It started to grow, and then the weeds came around and blocked the sunlight out, I guess. And then, it got opened back up. But I've thought about that, many times. I'm a thinker. I think way too much about stuff, and I've thought many times about that. And I think that initial, acceptance was true.
Yeah.
It's just a matter of I got lost a little bit, and just I worked my way back through
And
through
I
Christ.
wonder if that's an encouragement. John, think about, we know growing up in the church, there were a lot of kids that were very active, that made professions of faith, and there maybe even our parents here that are seeing their kids kind of wander, or, I sometimes say some line is being let out, if you want to use a fishing analogy, but, you're hoping not to break the line or to break the relationship off. But, I don't mean to put you in a teaching spot, but what would you say, you could, not to, put Denise on the spot either, but, did you feel like, what would you say to somebody who had a grown child that seems to have known everything, was really raised in the church, but they seem to have left it. What would you?
I think that one thing that I appreciated with my mom, and she knows I was struggling. She knows that I was, I think, wandering a little bit. She would say, but she wouldn't beat it into my head. You know better. How dare you? Anything like that. She came across, very aside me lovingly, and knew that she had done her job as a parent. She had raised me in the church, and we do that. But at some point, we need to let our kids go, and just pray that that God will lead them. And I think that that's probably the only advice that I would give is just don't. Be loving, with your kids if they're kind of straying a little bit. I mean, you don't have to be accepting of it. You don't have to, say, oh, it's okay. But you also don't need to be the tyrant parent coming down on them. How dare you? I raised you better than this. I think that maybe, well, at least for me, that would have turned me off even more. Mom and I had some conversations. I think when we had some serious conversations about my faith, and I remember telling her one time. I didn't want to live as a hypocrite. That scared me to death. I didn't want to be that. I didn't want to get spit out of, that verse getting spat out, of his mouth. I'm like, that sounds horrible. I don't want that at all. So instead, in my eyes, I won't lead any of that life. I'll lead this life, because then I'm not being a hypocrite, because that really makes sense, right? And then I remember telling her, I said, man, Mom, it was relentless. We were raised in the church we could never miss. I remember one day waking up feeling like absolute garbage, and my mom was like, get dressed, we're going to church. And I'm like, I don't feel good. We're going to church. So, it's things like that it's like, oh, come on, Mom. I don't know why I went down that path, but I guess love your kids, and realize that they're humans, are going to make mistakes, and just walk alongside them.
I always feel like, we orchestrate so much in our kids' lives, and mine are, 19 to 22, so I'm still trying to figure this out, but, you orchestrate so much of their spiritual progression. You're the one deciding what they do and where they go and who they're with. At least we sure did. But I can't think of a time in my life, or just about anybody's lives, that I can think of that their parents orchestrated their spiritual, that you maybe provided them the opportunities, but ultimately, my greatest times of growth were not something my parents said, well, this is how we're going to do it. The Lord has to do that, and it's hard to trust with our own, and your kids, you're just wonderful kids, but they have to have their own faith. They have to have their own journey. They have to have their own struggles.
Yeah, I know we were pushing that with our Impact Kids this, a lot, and Jesse's pushed that. It's, it's not your. Oh, I'm sorry. Yeah.
Dominguez has oversaw the middle school program this year.
It's at some point it's no longer your parents' faith. It has to be your faith, and that's really important. And that's you can't force feed your kids and make them do this. So at some point, you got to guide them and pray that
And I think we need all different stories. And I think your testimony is a different kind of encouragement to be able to say, well, parents do kind of, especially, some of the ones that are very hovering, and we were hovering too, but, when you can kind of freak out, when your kids, and I was much better at encouraging other people that had kids that were struggling than when it was my own, my own challenges have been, then I got some real deal, wake up and can't go back to sleep, and anxiety just starts to flood in of your own struggles. But it was always easier to encourage others with theirs. Just one thing I got to ask, it just came to mind somewhere. When you were, I'm just curious, and this is probably not really that important, but I got all goofy fired up about my faith at 2021. How did you process that? Because I know a lot of people were, like, oh, he's just, well, that's really weird. How did you process my, I think I remember calling you once. We had a revival on campus in March of '95, and I just started calling everybody that I knew, and I was just, I think my head was glowing, and I just was, just kind of interjecting. Did I come across, kind of bizarre? Or what did
You've
you think
always
of me
been a
being
little bizarre,
becoming a
but
becoming a pastor? Was it?
initially I think it's weird. um, you have these, I have memories of us growing up, and it's like all the knucklehead things we did, it's
Yeah.
like, come on, he's going to be a pastor? I don't know. I think maybe a teacher. No. I didn't think it was, well, that's what you were going to be writing
Yeah,
originally,
yeah.
yeah. I guess I really didn't think a tremendous amount about it, but I remember talking when you met Vonnie and how how mad over heels in love you were with her, like, oh, John, tell me all about her. And then when I heard you're being a pastor, I remember just thinking a little, wow. But then when, at your wedding, I think it was, what year did you get married? I can't remember.
What year?
Yeah.
98.
98, okay. I think that's, were you in seminary then? Or were you,
Yep.
okay,
Right in
at
the
that
middle.
point. So, once, I really thought about it, it made more sense.
It wasn't like
because
irritating or, sometimes
no,
if you're
no.
kind of moving away from faith and then, somebody, I didn't know if that was a really like a, wow, that's really weird thing, but.
No, it was weird the first time I sat out there and listened to you preach. And then it was kind of little, oh, it's real. He's really doing this. So.
Well, and then he came back to Baraboo and I know you loved Pastor Dave.
Oh yeah.
And you came back in the summer of 2018, and you were like, oh, you're taking over. You just moved back to town, and I was just about to be the senior pastor here. So
Yeah, because I don't think I was back a whole lot when you were, the youth pastor at all. And then, we didn't get back a whole lot. I don't know why, we just didn't get back a whole lot, so.
Yeah. Well, tell them how you ended up back in Baraboo.
Okay, so I got out of teaching. I had taught for 20 years, and I was an athletic director at this time, and just working a part-time job bartending at a restaurant, because once again, Catholic school teachers don't get paid very well, so we had kids and trying to make the bills, and people who work at the Y don't get paid really well either.
Okay, that's right. You
So,
left teaching.
I left teaching
even before you came here.
Yep. So
Okay.
I left. I got out of teaching because I was working sometimes 90 hours a week between all my jobs and just wasn't home a whole lot. So I got offered a management position at the restaurant that I worked at, and I'd helped manage in the summer and stuff. A fairly significant raise, so that was, nice. And so I took that route. And then I started to think a lot more about. I wasn't home a lot, because you work in a restaurant, you go into work at sometimes 2:00, and if you have a banquet, we had a huge banquet hall. I wouldn't get home
weren't you
till.
overseeing the banquets? And
Yeah, I would.
events?
Yeah, I would do that too.
Okay.
So I wouldn't get home sometimes till, if we have to set a room, 1:30, 2 in the morning, and send your kids to school on a Friday, 8 a.m. You don't see them until the next morning. And that just wasn't a great life for me spiritually. It wasn't a great life for me as a father. Our kids, when they saw me, Jess would bring them out, for lunch at the restaurant to see me. So even though I was working a lot less hours, the hours that I was working, I wasn't home much to see the kids. So my mom actually started talking to me about the job that I'm in now through Seasons Counseling, and luckily my stepsister and brother-in-law own it, and started talking a little bit about the program, and I got excited about it, but I didn't think that this was probably anything that was going to work out, because I didn't think Jess was going to want to move from Appleton. Her whole family's there. She's really close to her family. Mm-hmm. And I think I broached the subject, and I'm not sure if I even had the full sentence out of my mouth about taking a new job and moving, and she was like, let's do it. And at that point, I'm not sure if I was still totally sold on it. And, we prayed and we talked a lot about it. I talked a lot with Mom about it. And in my mind, I had all these barriers that were going to be in the way. Oh, this is not going to work because of this. It's not going to work because of this. And then slowly by slowly, God was like blowing open these doors, like, boom, we have a place to live. Oh, well, that's a big, oh, wow. Boom, yes, this is, whatever. All these doors just kept on seeming like they're opening, and I think Jess and I looked at each other and just said, it's pretty obvious what needs to happen here at this point. So I think that is probably the point of the most growth right there, was just seeing that God is going to provide this for us. And even though I didn't know the reasons why, all these doors are getting blasted open, I think that became, very obvious very quickly to us that this is where he wanted us. And I think it was really important for us to be here. I think that we've grown so much more in this church with our spirituality, just because of the connections we've been able to make with people and helping us grow. So.
Mm-hmm. And in that process, your faith, you kind of teased there a little bit, or kind of led us to the conclusion. Was there a moment for Jess? Again, I'm tying in Jess and your mom into this story. They could share, I'm sure, just as well, if not better. But did she have a time where she said that I'm now receiving this faith, or did she have kind of a conversion, or was it?
Yeah, I think that was back in Appleton.
Yeah.
Yeah, at our old church.
Yeah, nice. So the growth was there, and then you're saying it was a faith-building time, just even that process of coming
just this process of
trusting
just trusting,
yeah.
and seeing it, the prayers come to fruition.
Yeah.
I think it was just amazing, to be honest with you. It's just very eye-opening. It's like, well, how is this happening? I guess I can share. Mom and Bill had, a house that they lived in, a beautiful home, and they said, well, you come live in this house. We'll go live over here. And it's like, well, wow, okay, things like that. It just things you don't expect, and it's like no big deal. But here it is.
Yeah.
So.
They apparently really wanted you here too. Yeah.
They wanted their grandkids.
Yeah, that's probably true. Yeah. So you've been back 5 years, I think, almost.
Yeah,
exactly.
5 years last week, I think.
Okay, nice. And now you have a big battle in front of you with cancer. Jess has cancer. And do you want to give just a brief
Sure.
explanation of what she's facing?
So we've had a really rough, 6-7 months. So Jess's mom's on her third battle with lung cancer. Or just finished up her third battle of lung cancer. It was ended, I think, in February. She found out technically she's cancer-free, but they still found another little nodule that they're just going to keep an eye on. And then in March of this year, Jess's dad found out he has stage 4 colon, lung, stomach, and liver cancer. Was given 3 to 6 months without treatment, 1 to 2 years with treatment. So he's doing the treatment. And then in April, we found out Jess has brain cancer. So it's been a rough little go.
Mm-hmm.
But once again, I think I look back, I'm a thinker, and I look back in my life a little bit and go, initially when Jess's dad got sick, it was like, well, maybe we need to be up there. We should be up there. Jess was up there a lot, through her mom's treatments and stuff. I'm sort of thinking maybe we should have been up there. And then Jess got sick, and I was like, oh, this is why God wanted us here. We have my family here who can help with kids. God knew these challenges were coming down the road, and I think that we look at it as coincidence, and I look at it as God, his direction.
Yeah.
So, and she's doing. Jess just finished up radiation a week and a half ago, so that was a big hurdle we're through now. So, and then she starts back on her chemo in a couple weeks.
Okay, yeah. When I think of you guys, it's really amazing to me how you've, I know you more, John, as that you were a little more hyper and emotional, and as a young one, you were very funny and fun, and silly, but you are just a rock, and your disposition, and I'm sure you're not always a rock every moment, but you really have a strength about you, and to think of not having a dad and then being such a strong, courageous dad through this time. How are you guys doing?
I mean, I think we're doing well. I mean, we've both given it up to God, and I mean, I think that there's tremendous relief in that. You know, it's we've given it to God, and God's going to, it's His thing. And it's funny. I was talking to our AC went out the other day on one of the hot days, and of course Tommy D came over to Tom Davidson, for those who don't know Tommy D, came over to help us out, and we had a conversation. We were just talking, and I said, I got to sit down with Dan. Maybe this isn't the time to sit down with Dan and talk about this, but there's struggles of we're called to give it up to God and just and pray for that, and ultimately it's His divine will. It's going to occur, which is we're very okay with, but we're also called to be praying constantly.
Yeah.
So it's like, where's the line? I struggle with that. Should I be praying every moment of the day for my wife? Or have I prayed and I've given up to God and just, so that's something that's, I think, tough, is we've accepted. I've accepted, and I think Jess has too. But, we struggle. We struggle with things like this things like that.
Yeah.
But overall, I think, we're positive. We think that we've been told by many people that how we're going through this is touching them. We've had a lot of conversations with friends and family. Jess's family are non-believers and pretty closed off to a lot of stuff. But lots of conversations are starting because of this. And if that's, I guess if that's what it takes, we're okay with that.
Well, I really have a hard time imagining that John didn't completely misinterpret that first meeting with you, Jess, where he thought you had a bad attitude, because I've just never, I want to just sometimes just show up around there with binoculars and see if I can catch Jess with a bad attitude.
Never.
You really? Never? Yeah. Yeah. She says she does. But yeah, you guys just both, you have such a strength about you. And then Jess just has such a grace, the way that she carries herself. And the other day when I just was driving around and I saw her in her happy spot, you call it? Her happy place. She was out on her swing. And, it was just irresistible to come out. She didn't even notice me, or she didn't recognize who was in the car. Bill and I had made some pastoral rounds, and so I'm like, oh, I gotta go. I see her out there. You're just drawn to her spirit, even through, what is just, yeah. I mean, we were completely overwhelmed for you guys, from her mom's story to her dad's story, and then for you guys to jump in and have your own battle. I won't try to answer that question that you asked a second ago, but that is a really interesting one, and I think we're all learning from each other in our faith journeys. But Tim Keller had a battle with cancer. Do you know Tim Keller? He's a really interesting guy to listen to. Brilliant pastor, but out on the East Coast. But yeah, he would pray pancreatic cancer, but he'd pray one day a week. They would have a prayer time. That was just his. And everybody can do it their own way, but he'd have one time where they'd literally pray for healing, like to remove it, believing the Lord can. And they didn't stop doing it, but they, like you said, it was interesting. He didn't want to be consumed with that. He didn't want to be discouraged, but nor did he want to stop, or it's kind of hard to know what to do it. So everybody has their own way. The Apostle Paul in 2 Corinthians 12, when he talks about his thorn in the flesh and realizing, oh, my story is one of weakness. Wow, I didn't envision that. I thought it was going to be one of strength. And so for him to hand that over to the Lord and to see God use him in weakness was kind of where he was resolving to be. But yeah, I see a strength in you guys through this. And that, was another question I had was, do you see the Lord using this in your own testimonies? But you're seeing that. Family and friends. And Jess does have a lot of friends, right? Kind of
Freakish amount of friends.
freakish, right?
Like, we go away, I take her someplace, like one of our first dates, I brought her back to the Dells. she'll know no one here, right? No. We were here not even how long. She knew someone. It's like, really? This is my area. I'm supposed to know the people here. So.
Yeah. Honeymoon? Did you have another one when you were honeymooning?
Actually, I knew the person on our honeymoon out in Yellowstone. One of my
Oh, nice.
kids I taught was there with his family. So.
Oh, that's perfect. She's encouraging you, John. You were always very, very well liked and had a trail of friends kind of wherever you went to. But, well, we are in this with you guys, and it's hard to know sometimes.
Yeah, I mean, we're so overwhelmed. Oh, so overwhelmed with the blessings of, people wanting to just check in with us and what can we do to help. People are taking Jester appointments so I could go to work. That's why we're here. That's why we're back here.
Praise God.
We have our family, and then we have our family. So.
Yeah, praise God. Well, we're in this with you, but we're also, as I was saying, just admiring and in awe and trying to learn from, there's levels of faith that can only be gotten through fires. And you've been through a number of them that I haven't been through, in your life. And your resolve and strength, I'm sure, is a big part of the story that God's had you on. Well, it's time. Nice work. Thanks, buddy. I really appreciate it. I wasn't sure when I asked John if he was going to say, oh, no.
Yeah, then I had to back up the bear attack.
Yeah,
and then I got to follow
Edgar,
I forget their last names.
Even Mary, you were saying, oh man, Mary
Hackbar's story, and then Laquita, I have to follow that. What?
Were you here for the Menidis too?
The Menidis?
Oh,
there was such a cute couple up here. Are they in here? But
I don't think
Mr. Menidi, oh my gosh, he is a stitch.
Yeah, oh for sure. Well, let's thank John for sharing with us today. Well, I do now see Marion there. Last week she wasn't so happy with Frank. Is he okay? Okay. Oh. Too much from last week. I thought maybe you took care of him, through the week. But he's the one that's Italian. No, I shouldn't go there. All right, let's pray as we close. Lord, thank you for this time with John. And oh man, you're so good, and it's been so much fun having such close Christian fellowship with John and Jess and those amazing kids of theirs. And we're just grateful for what you've done. And I know there's a praying mom back there who just couldn't be happier and prouder. And yet you still have a role for her. She's got these kids and grandkids and others to care for. Lord, you give us our stories for a reason. And none of us are going to live forever on this earth unless your son returns. And we welcome that. For him to come back right now and to take us. But we just trust you, and we want to follow you, and we just declare our love for you and allegiance to you. So thank you for John, and just continue to use him in his story, we pray. In Jesus' name, amen.